Hey everyone, welcome to another Logic video. This video is going to be quite similar to the one I did for vocal mixing, in that I'm going to be looking at one of my own songs, a particular aspect of the mixing, and see how I achieved the results that I achieved in that particular case. Hopefully through that process, maybe you'll also pick up some ideas that you can maybe incorporate into your own projects and things like that. So this time we're going to be looking at guitar mixing, and this song is quite typical of what I tend to do in terms of guitar, because we've got a power chord part, and we've also got one or two higher guitar parts as well as obviously a bass guitar part too. So I'm going to be looking at the chorus of this song, Control, and we're just going to play that chorus first of all so you can hear what the kind of final product sounds like. Alright, so let's look at each of those parts in more detail. First of all, I want to look at the power chord part. So you've got a couple of options for the ways you can mix this into your own project. Ideally, you might have multiple recordings of the same part, multiple takes. That would make things quite easy. Say you've got two takes that you've got, you would drop them into your project and you could pan one hard left and the other hard right. And in so doing, you can create quite a big guitar sound quite cheaply. There's not a lot of effort involved there. If you just got one take, that's fine. That's what I've got here. It just requires a slightly different way of doing things. So I'm just going to take this power chord part as an example, as if we've just dropped this into the project from the get-go and applied our Logic guitar preset of British metal, say. So you can hear that sounds alright. It sounds a bit thin though, and a way you can achieve that same large sounding effect as if you had two takes is to apply a sample delay. And this is kind of similar to what I did for the doubled vocals and the backing vocals in my other video. And what you can do is just delay one of the channels out, about 1,000 samples or so, and that creates immediately a much bigger sound. So a much bigger, much wider sound. And that can go a long way to making your guitar recordings sound good and sound really like they fit in the mix really well. So in this particular song, what I've actually done is, this is the same take here, but I'm using two of Logic's guitar presets simultaneously. So I'm using British metal and I've panned that about halfway to the left. I'm also using American metal and I'm panning that halfway to the right. Then what I'm doing with each of those tracks is routing them into a common bus. First of all, I'm applying some EQ. I'm making a cut up in the high end where I've got a boost in the vocals, and where you might apply some EQ here will depend obviously on your specific mix, and maybe where your vocals have got a bit of a boost, you want to cut down the guitar in the same place. That's just one idea. There's a lot of things you can do there and just play around with and see what it sounds like. After my EQ, that's where I'm applying this sample delay. So the effect is to have that quite big guitar sound, but we've also got a slightly different intonation, I suppose, between the left channel and the right channel, because there's different effects. And that's really it. There's not a lot of processing I do to my guitar tracks in that sense. You also have the option of maybe putting some reverb on the end there. But that step is really up to you. With that sample delay, with the tiny bit of EQ, you've got a nice baseline from which you can try those kind of things out. Moving on to the higher parts, so let's take a listen to some of them. So I've got a couple of these. There's the other one there. And again, I've done very little processing to these beyond applying the preset Logic guitar effects to them. The processing that I have done is some EQ and a little bit of delay and echo, and reverb on one of the tracks in that case. For EQ, what I've done, if I just bring them both up, you'll see one up in the high mids is kind of a mirror image of the other a little bit. So for one of them, I'm taking down the frequencies around 1K, and then we start to peak again over 5K. And the other one's essentially the opposite. It peaks over 1K and dips around 5. That's just an attempt to try and create some room for each other, I suppose, and so they're not clashing in the same kind of frequency ranges, because we do have the same effect, British metal, that we're applying to both. These effects, they all have different kind of frequency patterns and behaviors. But if you're using the same one, that's quite a good way of avoiding a clash there if you've got multiple parts. After the EQ, for one of the tracks here, I'm just applying a simple echo. With the other, I've got a stereo delay with different delay times on the right channel and the left channel, which just gives a nice delay effect, I think. Makes it sound a little bit bigger in itself. And in terms of panning, all I'm doing to those tracks is panning one, again, about halfway left, and the other about halfway right. And the result of panning those quite far out is that you have just a nice little space in the middle for your vocals to sit and really shine through. I tend to find you run into a lot of problems if you have a guitar part that's panned near center, which obviously your vocals probably are as well, so you get kind of clashing between them, and it won't sound too great sometimes. Besides that, I've got a bass guitar part, and I've chosen a preset here which has quite a nice frequency response, I think, frequency behavior, in that it's got a lot of that low end and just really gets out the way before we get even into those low mids. Correspondingly on my power chord part, and I believe this is a part of the presets that I've got applied, but there's just a really harsh low cut there to get out of the way of any of those bass frequencies. So I've got my bass guitar part taking care of all of that. Don't need my regular guitar to be cutting in there as well. And that's really it. There's not a lot to my technique, as you can probably see, but I think the results sound quite good. The kind of things you've got to remember is your EQ. You want to be maybe cutting in some frequencies that other instruments are really shining through on, maybe giving the EQ a little bit of a boost on the guitar if you've got a little space to do so. Also, that sample delay, that's a really cheap and easy way to make a guitar sound big, especially if you've only got one recording. If you have multiple recordings, for example 2, like I say, you can pan one fully left, one fully right, you get the same effect, and that's quite good. And on those high parts, you can add, just for a little bit of decoration, some echo, some stereo delay. That can be quite nice sometimes as well. But that's really it. And I'd be really interested to see what you do in terms of guitar mixing. So if you've got any of your songs or your projects you'd like to share, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll check them out. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.